Hi, everybody. It's Chuck Gilmore with Power to Sing Live, number 162, episode 162. And today we're going to talk about reinforced falsetto versus head voice. Should be a really interesting discussion today because there's a lot of conversation about this going on in the world of YouTube and the world of singing, and so anyway, we'll see what happens. Hey, Devox, hi. I want to make sure everybody can hear me okay today. I've had some issues with my microphone lately, but I think I've got it turned up. Daniel, hi. Miguel, nice to have you here today. Thiago, hey, nice to see you. So, what is the difference? Can you tell? Do you know the difference between falsetto and head voice? Do you know the difference between falsetto and head voice? Just say yes or no in the comments below. You should know the difference by the end of our broadcast today. Mark Schultz, nice to have you here, Mark. It's been a while, but watch all the tutorials, Mark said. So it's nice to have you join us today. Daniel said, before we start proper, I want to thank you again. I went to a karaoke the other night and was practically begged to come back. Awesome, Daniel. That's exciting. Good for you. Devox says the sound is good. So that's what I was hoping for. Okay. So temperature report, the high today is going to be in the 20s. It's cold here in the state of Utah. We're about 4,500 elevation in my home here, 4,400 maybe. And it's really cold in the mountains. We've got snow up there. We had 30 inches of snow this weekend in the mountains. Nothing on my yard, though, because it was warm enough that it melted. But we are in wintertime. And it's going to be just a few more days, and then the days are going to get longer again. Can you believe it? We'll hit the first day of winter here pretty soon, and then the days will start getting longer, which is kind of fun. Okay, so a couple other comments here. Daniel said, okay, so Miguel thinks, yes, he does think he knows the difference. It's really kind of an important thing to know the difference, and I think we'll kind of dig into that a little bit here today. Daniel said, yesterday I managed to sing one song I previously couldn't without breaking a sweat. Well, Daniel, congratulations. You've done the work. You've got to put in the work. Even if you hear good, interesting information, I got the easy job. I just have to tell you about it. And you've got to be the one that implements it. And so congratulations. Emmanuel, hi. Looking forward to learning something new. Me too. Thiago, my head voice doesn't sound like falsetto, but it doesn't sound like chest voice. Yeah, it probably shouldn't, if your head voice sounds like chest voice, it's probably pulling up a little bit. I feel it's in the middle of the road. How to make head voice sound like it's pulling chest. Yeah, I'm probably not the guy to talk to about that. I don't want you to sound like you're pulling chest. No, Luis, we just got started here. We started at the top of the hour. Okay, so the question of the day is, do you know the difference between falsetto and head voice? Do you know the difference between falsetto and head voice? So please just make a comment in the section below, down in the comment section, yes or no, and then let's see if that changes during the process of our conversation today. So, what is falsetto? It's not easy for us to really be able to tell the difference. And I don't know if it's easier for the ladies or not, but for the guys, it's hard. And I know as a beginning teacher, about 10 or 11 years ago, I when I would listen to a female singer in her upper range, I had a hard time distinguishing whether it was whether she was in falsetto or whether she was in a connected head tone. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. But we don't live there. Us guys, we don't talk up there. We don't speak in that area of the voice. And so, it's a region of our voices that we're unfamiliar with. And it's even rather awkward for us. And so when we hear it, and the other challenge is when we hear head voice and we hear falsetto, in many instances they sound the same. And I remember when I was early on in my studies of singing, which is just about 10 years ago. Well, let me think. Sorry. That's when I started teaching full time. When I started studying this full time is about 22 years ago. And I studied for about 6 to 9 months with a teacher. And then the rest of the year I was listening to cassette tapes. And for the next 2 years, my teacher moved out of town. The next 2 years, I was listening on cassette tapes and practicing all the time in my car. That's where I would practice, slide the tape in and turn it on and then do exercises and practice singing because I was doing theater at the time. And I started taking lessons again at the end of a 3-year period, which was the beginning of January, or the first part of January 2000. In the first lesson that I had, the very first lesson, we were doing this exercise. And I said, what is that? And he said, what's what? I said, what is that? What is that? Oh. And he said, that's your head voice. And I said, okay. I thought it was. But here's the point. 3 years, and I still, granted a couple, 2.5 years or almost 2.5 years were on my own. But I was listening to tapes. I was reading Singing for the Stars. I was, I wasn't doing something. But I had felt that I began to understand the difference. Well, one day, my teacher, who I said had moved away, came by my house. She came to say hello to my wife. They were friends, and I happened to be home. And I said, please, if you got a minute, would you just tell me what you think this is? And I think I did something like, and I said, what is that? She said, that's falsetto. She was wrong. I thought she was wrong. But that was one of the things that confused me. So because by the time I started up lessons again in 2000, I wanted to verify that what I was thinking was correct. It's just tough at first to get a real feel for it. Anybody else have that trouble? Yeah, Emmanuel says they sound the same. It's hard to differentiate. The difference is in the chord closure, I believe. Louise, you are right. Daniel says falsetto isn't connected to chest voice. That's correct. And I'll see if I can explain that a little bit more here. So don't feel bad if you're a little fuzzy on what it is, when you're hearing it or when you're actually singing it. Let me see if I can get kind of plain here and really define. Let's start with falsetto. First of all, let me show you on. I'm gonna just advance. I'm gonna show you a video of. Oh, I'm gonna do a couple things here. First of all, I want to. Let me see. I want to pull up the definition on Wikipedia of falsetto. Okay, and there's an illustration. And here's what the illustration looks like. Ready? I'm going to put this on screen for us. And here it is. Now, the red part is the muscle of the vocal cord. The yellow part is a tendon. And the outer layer that you can see moving is mucosa, which is the outer thin layer of the outer vocal folds themselves. And you can see by definition that when you're in falsetto, something is not moving. And that in the definition of falsetto, the muscle is not engaged in the production of the tone. And so if these were the vocal folds, and what that picture was is if we took a slice, we cut right down, and you could see the muscle. This is all that's happening. The rest of the muscle is, all the layers of the chords. It's just this outer layer, this upper outer layer of mucosa that's participating in the production of falsetto. And the rest of the body of the chord, the muscle itself and the tendon, is not participating in the production of tone. And so by definition, there is no thyroid arytenoid, which is the muscle in the vocal fold, is not engaged when you're in the vocal condition of falsetto. It sounds like ah, ah. If I break, now I'm doing that hard so that you can hear it. Ah, ah, there's falsetto, and I'll connect back and forth so you can hear that connection. But the muscle has disengaged, and so if I were saying now I'm in slow motion there, right? Let me show you another illustration here, and this is from a video, and this is in my videos on falsetto versus head voice. But this is an illustration of vocal folds under a camera, and they're doing a video of a gentleman named Mal, M-A-L, Webb, and he is a voice actor, and he can make some really wild, crazy sounds with his voice. And they wanted to see what that actually looked like when he was doing what he does. Now, I don't know if you can hear this or not. You probably hear it over my microphone. I don't think it's going to go live onto the... It might. Let me just see here. Let me turn this audio on, and I'll try and get it. It doesn't look like that audio is going to go on. So you may or may not hear it. But what I want you to see, what I want you to do is see what happens to the vocal folds. Watch this. Sorry. I'll play it back for you. Now, notice the first one is head voice. Watch the vocal cords themselves. Slow motion. See what happens when it breaks into falsetto? There's more of the chord involved, And now there's just barely touching the outer layers of the vocal folds. Were you able to see that? Let me know in the comments below. Could you see that illustration where when he was in when he was connected in head voice, the chords were coming together, and when he went into falsetto, there was not as much of a contraction of the chord structure, and it just was just just barely the outer layer, that mucosal layer of chord, participating in the production of the tone. It's a slow motion video of the vocal folds. You couldn't see that normally if it wasn't in they use a strobe light to get it into slow motion. Good. Okay, so Skylar said you could see it. So here's the main thing that I want to kind of convey. We're not just talking about what it sounds like, because frankly, sometimes I can't tell the difference in the sound. But there is a difference in the chord structure, in the condition of the chords between falsetto and the head voice. The falsetto is essentially just the outermost layer, the mucosal layer of the chord structure, participating in generating the sound wave, and the muscle and tendon are not functioning. Now, what isn't shown in that diagram is the cricothyroid is engaged in falsetto because it helps the chord structure adjust. It tenses the chord structure so that you can adjust for pitch. That's a muscle outside of the larynx, and it tilts the larynx forward and helps for pitch, but helps you obtain pitch. But this is the primary distinction between head voice and falsetto. Now let me show you a diagram of. Now there isn't anything like this for head voice. But let me show you the diagram of chest voice, and you can kind of get a sense for the difference. You see now what's moving is the muscle and the tendon, and look how much of the mucosa is moving. If I go back to the falsetto, notice that how much difference there is there. See, it's just really like the upper edge of the mucosa, versus in chest voice the full, the muscle, tendon, and the just so much more of the chord structure. Now in head voice, I'm confident that there isn't that much, but in head voice, the muscle is engaged, the tendon is engaged, and both of them, and that's all a part of that head voice coordination. Probably just not quite as aggressive. In other words, see how deep it is in this illustration. You can see it from this level to this level, and I don't think that would be the case necessarily when we're in head voice. It's not going to be like this, where there's no tendon, no muscle, as illustrated in the red. But there's definitely going to be, in head voice, there's going to be, what was that? What's that? There's going to be, sorry, let me change it. There we go. There's going to be more of this. So, okay. Hopefully that's kind of helpful in terms of knowing the difference between the condition of the vocal cords. It's not just a sound. It is an actual physical difference between the falsetto and head voice. So let me just get any other comments here. Okay, so that's going back to what Daniel said, and Louis says the difference is the chord closure, and hopefully that illustrates that. So one of them is like this, and then head voice is deeper into the chord structure, and you've got muscle and tendon participating in that coordination of head voice. Now you could see that going back to that video that I showed you, where when he breaks into falsetto, there's kind of this pop of air. Let me show that to you again. There's a little bit of a pop of air that seems to like blow the chords apart, and then you can literally see that they're not coming together like they were before. Here it is again, and let me enlarge this. Maybe that'll help. Here we go. In this video, he's making some unusual sounds. Watch it blow apart here. And so that's where I think we get the term disconnected. But it's not just you can see in here. It's not just the chords popping apart. It's also the tone. There's the sense of a separate, of a kind of a break. That does feel like a disconnection, and I suppose you could say it's a disconnection because there's no longer an affiliation or a relationship to chest anymore. Now I've lost the bottom. So in that sense, it seems like there's a disconnection from the bottom. You don't quite have that foundation of that that connected tone to the chest. And that's because at that moment, the muscle of the chord structure has disengaged. It's no longer participating. It's just that outer layer of tissue. And so that's the difference between falsetto and head voice. A couple other comments here. Okay. I hear Devox says, I hear singers wrongly refer to upper head voice as falsetto. And it's so interchangeable, and that's another confusing point, is that some people just refer to this sound as their falsetto. Whether they're in head voice or not, they just refer to it as the falsetto because it's actually incorrect. It's not a false voice. It's the true voice. But it's in a head voice configuration. There's been some other adjustments in the chord structure, but it didn't let go. The muscle has stayed engaged in head voice, and so it's really not their falsetto. Their falsetto is different than the head voice configuration. So I would prefer. I never try and interchange those. I have, for the purposes of YouTube videos, as a title, and the first thing I explain is there is a difference, because some people, when they hear the word falsetto, they think of head voice, and they may be in head voice. They actually may not be in falsetto, but they refer to it as falsetto, and that's another reason why everything gets confusing. Mark Schultz. Hey, Mark. Nice to have you here today. So would pulling chest be used for too much of the... would pulling chest be using too much of the TA muscle in the higher register? Yeah, probably, Mark, that's... It does need to be present, but there is a... It's... I look at it more as... I kind of compare it to a rubber band. And when the rubber band tenses, it gets thinner and smaller in mass. It just is not as heavy or thick. I think that's what's what needs to take place. But if the chord structure stays shorter, thicker, and heavier, as people are kind of like yelling up the bottom, then I do think that that's the culprit. Because what would happen if the thyroid or arytenoid, if the TA disengaged, then you can't be in pulled chest, right? But that's one reason why people break, is they're pulling that weight up, and then and they just can't hold on, and they don't know how to like relax and let that thin a little bit. So we have to drop some of the heaviness without letting go of the thyroid or arytenoid. So as a result, Mark, what do? We thin that out, and we say, nay, 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 nay. You see, there are reasons why we do that exercise, and that's one of them. So, yes, we could see the separation when going in the falsetto. Thanks, Devox. It just like kind of pops right open, you know. And if you can hear it. If I said ah ah ah, when some of you maybe have seen this, but Johnny Weissmuller was one of I think the best Tarzan that there was in the old original Tarzan movies, and he would do this call, and he would go in and out of falsetto. He did it a lot better. Well, I don't know if he did it. Somebody did it for him. It was great. I used to do that when I was a kid. I thought it was so cool. Okay, so Emmanuel says, if it's not connected to the chest voice, how do we transition perfectly? I normally notice a gap when trying to switch. So Emmanuel, it brings up a good point. If you do disconnect, or if the tone breaks into falsetto, and in other words, if that thyroid or arytenoid muscle disengages, it stops functioning, then when you try and go back down, what do you get? You can't just blend into chest. If I'm in falsetto and I say, so I have to re-engage. I have to re-establish the muscle in the vocal cord, and so you get that kind of clunk back in. So that's one drawback to falsetto, and that is that in many instances when we're in falsetto, it's if you go back to your low voice, sometimes what happens, especially with the ladies, not much with guys, but if they're up here and they're in falsetto, if they're in falsetto, they're disconnected, so they go back down to chest and it's not there. And that's why they don't have any chest voice. So if they are in a connected tone or in head voice, you don't have to worry about finagling that, reestablishing the participation of the muscle and the vocal cord, and it just blends right in because it's always been engaged. The muscle's always been engaged, and so you don't have to reconnect. This is a great discussion. This might be one of the best that we've had on this topic. I wish you were my teacher. Well, thanks. Paprika. Skylar says, I've been doing your flip falsetto exercises every day, but I just saw another video you uploaded called Blending Register Singing, 4 exercises. Which one should I be doing to prevent cracks? Skylar, the challenge with flip falsetto is this question. Why are you flipping in the falsetto? Are you flipping in the falsetto because you're pulling chest voice up or are you just letting go? And everybody, this is an important point. When taking the quiz on my website, I can't really ask the question, why did you break into falsetto? I can only ask, did you? Because no one understands their voice well enough at this point to know, well, I can tell you why I broke into falsetto. As I was increasing the pitch, the thyroid arytenoid became too tight, and so I disengaged it. No, you know. So here's the question: do you do it this way, or do you say Do you just let go, or do you kind of hold on to chest, hold on, and it kind of like cracks, and you finally kind of go in? If it's the second one, if you're holding on to chest and it just cracks, then you can go ahead and really you should probably be, the flip falsetto exercises will help you, but the exercises for pulled chest, high larynx may be why you're flipping and breaking. So you may want to try those exercises, Skylar, for a while and see if that is going to help you even more by keeping the larynx down, or by some of those other exercises. Emmanuel says, I saw and heard it well. Okay, good. So I'm glad that worked out. Mark says in the video, in the upper part of the vocal cord in the front, is the upper in the front or the back? And so what's happening is, in that video there, good question. Let me just see here. Let me pull it up again and see if we can watch this together, and I'll give you my opinion. I haven't really thought about it that much. All right, so I got lots of little buttons here. Let me put that on, and let's turn this back on again, and I'll see if I can tell. The vocal cords suddenly breaking apart. This is falsetto. While in falsetto, you can see the edges of the vocal cords are barely touching. I'm going to go back a little ways. Here we go. Frankly, let me tell you, I can't really see it, but I'm going to give you my guess. And my guess is that the front is here. And the reason why I say that is because you see this V shape right here, this kind of V configuration. That would indicate that that the connection is at the bottom of the screen. And when they so that the connection is towards the front of the larynx, or is anterior in the front, and so they open and close like this. And so when they look at it on the camera, then it looks like this on the screen. And so usually this connection is at the bottom of the screen. Okay, so I think that the picture here, the vocal cords are connected at the bottom of the screen. So it'd be the front of the neck is where they're connected, and they're opening at the back of the neck. Interesting, in that falsetto, it looks like there's no cord touching at all. Yeah, you have to. And if it were going a little bit longer, you could, every once in a while you can see the little edges coming together. But it's slow motion, and so it's a little bit. If it were fast motion, it would probably look pretty much like they were closing. But in slow motion, you can see how much air is being blown through the cord structure. Okay, so Divock says, so the cords are still making a sound independent of touching each other. Why it's so weak of a sound? The more air that escapes through the cord structure, and of course the less depth of adduction, the less cord is participating, is you get a breathier and a lighter sound, and so that's what causes that lighter, breathier sound. Paprika says, my classical trained teachers say men don't have head voice. Well, so yes, we do have head voice. We all have head voice. If I said, oh, that's falsetto. The previous one was head voice. So I go up light head voice, and then I can break into falsetto. Loaya Taha. Hello, I've been sick, colds and bronchitis for nearly 2 weeks, and it's affected my voice. Now I'm feeling gradually better. When is the best time to know it's okay to exercise and sing again? I think, Loay, if you don't have a sore throat, if there's no pain in the chord structure, and you don't feel like you have any of this inflammation now on the voice, and you can talk comfortably, I think you can go ahead and vocalize. I would ease back into it. I wouldn't go crazy. But if it's still sore, I would wait until, if you had a sore throat, until it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to swallow. It doesn't hurt to talk, okay? You can hear that I only got 4 hours of sleep last night, can't you? What exercises do you recommend to improve? Should I do them every day? What exercises would you recommend to improve? Veronica, what's your vocal type? I can answer you better. Uh-oh. I can't hear you, Chuck. Mr. TB Tuvard. Anybody else having an issue with the sound? We checked that earlier. Let me just double check again to make sure it hasn't adjusted itself for whatever reason. No, I'm still at 95%. Excuse me. It must be something on your end. No one else has said anything either. So I'm sorry, Mr. T. Louise, can you make a video explaining resonators? Yeah, probably sometime. I don't get a lot of questions about resonators. The Evil Genius says, hi, Chuck. I'm a flip falsetto type, but as an absolute beginner who haven't perfected any basic techniques like breathing or mixed voice, how should I take this concept of head voice or falsetto? You just, if you just learn from it and are aware that if you're in head voice, the chord structure is, there's more vocal cord and the muscle is participating. And if you're in falsetto, then you've lost some of the muscle is no longer engaged. And just knowing that is helpful. So I propose to you guys and gals that head voice is more desirable than falsetto for a number of reasons. One, head voice blends into chest. Head voice has more overtone in it because there is that participation of that muscle that's always going there, and so there's just more overtone that it produces, and you can hear, and I'll show you in a minute what I think reinforced falsetto is, but in the end, I want all of my students to be able to choose. If you want to break into falsetto for stylistic choices, fine. But if you have to break into falsetto because that's the only way you can see it, then your voice and you as a singer are limited. You can't do it the other way. I want you to be able to choose between them. And I would encourage you to choose in unusual, in certain circumstances, sure, you can break into falsetto and it'll have this cool little sound. But generally speaking, I would encourage head voice. The other thing is, imagine singing all your life with just the outer mucosa layer of your vocal cords. And that's unfortunately what some singers do. They sing in falsetto all their lives. And guess what happens to the muscle? If you don't use it, you lose it. And so as you age, guess what happens? Get a wobble. Because they've been in falsetto for so long, there's just no body, there's no strength in the muscle cord structure. Hopefully that helps. So the idea is to be able to choose between, understand them, and be able to choose to do either or, but not to be limited that the only way you can sing a high note is by breaking into falsetto. Can we perfect each technique separately? So hopefully that's, yes, you want to eliminate falsetto. You want to eliminate having to break into falsetto. You want to be able to get into your head voice without any strain and tension. That's a connected head voice. You want to be able to do that. If you said, you're limited. You have to re-engage the muscle because it's disconnected on the way up. So I want you to be able to once you're able to do head voice, then you can choose whether or not you want to break into falsetto for whatever, for stylistic purposes. Or and there are some singers you can hear they're breaking into falsetto. Most of the time I think they have to sing it that way because they don't know how to do it the other way. Sam Smith transitions so, let me see. Yeah. Emmanuel says, Sam Smith transitions so easily. I wish I could do that without running riffs to bridge the gap. Yeah, he's quite a singer, isn't he? Emmanuel, I feel you're the same. Okay. All right, Veronica had no problems with sound. So I don't know, Mr. T, something is going on with your system. Sometimes refreshing the page will help. Thanks for letting me know, you guys, on the sound. Skyler says, is 2 hours of vocal exercise a day okay? Is that healthy? If you perform 2 hours a night, I think that's probably okay. Yeah. You want to practice as long as you're performing. But other than that, I don't see. I don't think you need to practice that long. I think more importantly is the effectiveness, how well you're practicing, rather than how long you're practicing. I think probably breaking it up and doing it at different times of the day. I know when I've heard Seth Riggs talk about this, when he was on tour with Michael Jackson on his tour, his World Thriller tour, he vocalized him 3 times a day. And there was a vocalizing at noon, and I think they did like an hour at noon. And then somewhere around 4:30, they did 45 minutes or something like that. And then at 8:30, right before he went on, or around that time, 8 to 8:30 or something like that, he would do another 30 minutes. And so so Michael vocalized a couple hours a day when he was on tour on Thriller, but they spaced it out throughout the day. And I'm not sure those are pretty close to the right times. I can't remember exactly what he said about the total amount of time, but it seemed like it was an hour and then 45 minutes and 30 minutes. But for the rest of us mortals, I don't know that I think the general advice is if you're performing a couple hours, then you should probably practice that long. And if not, I don't think you need to do it that much. Dennis says, I can find my mixed voice and resonators. I'm not sure what you guys mean by resonators. Find your resonators only when I'm trying to sing loudly. Is it a bad practice and better to start with a quiet sound? Dennis, that's a good question. Generally, I think you want to be on about medium to medium loud at the loudest until you really kind of get your technique down. And the reason is because we kind of default into a loud sound, and what happens is it tenses up the voice. So we add a lot of tension when we increase the loudness, because we have to push more air the vocal cords hold back the air to create the volume, the loudness, and that tightens everything up. So I think you're better suited to try and bring, especially when you're working with these exercises that I teach, is to do them softer rather than loud. I'm going to be releasing a video tonight or tomorrow, and it's going to really address this exact question of loudness. You want to be on the softer side because that way you don't have to fight added tension in your voice. And that's really what gets us, is that tension. Veronica, by the way, to answer your question, I'm pretty sure I'm a soprano. Does that help at all? Veronica, I wanted to know if you're a pull chest, high larynx, light chest, no chest, flip falsetto. Then I would know which exercises, because the exercises that I give you on my website are based on how you on what the voice does when you go through your bridge. And then I can tell you right off the bat what you need, what exercises you need to do. If you guys haven't gotten your vocal type yet, this is a good little spot to. So after this video is over, go down, and so in a minute I want to talk about what is reinforced falsetto. But after the show, go down to the description area and get your vocal type. So get a PDF. There's a PDF there that's free, and it says get your vocal type, and it has links to the vocal test. It has links to the videos about your so you can discover your vocal type. It has links to videos that are all about your vocal type, and it has links to exercises that you download for your vocal type. So Veronica, if you haven't gotten that yet, get the PDF, take the vocal test, watch the videos about your vocal type, and there's links to the videos, and then there are exercises for your vocal type. It's a great way to go because it's going to address exactly what you need in your voice as you sing higher. Evil Genius says, Chuck, you talking about overall singing techniques. Is there a sequence to learn? If there is, please do tell. I know breathing is the first. Evil Genius, I don't believe breathing is the first. Many teachers do, but I think it's way overdone. I think what's first is the chord structure and the larynx position. And with that, I would say if you know your vocal type, that's where you want to begin. Get your vocal type, as I mentioned to Veronica, look in the information in the description below the video, get your vocal type, download that PDF, and take the test, watch the videos, download those exercises. That's the sequence. Hi, Chuck. How to press into head voice to get in the mix? Thanks. Well, those are great questions. So let me just, I think the fastest, easiest way to do this, to show this example of how to press into head voice to get mix, is to go up on a narrow vowel and say, no, 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 no. And if done correctly, that's in head voice. No, 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 no. So no, no, no. If I said no, 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 that wouldn't be right. No, 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 no. Now, the way to learn to press into your mix is to go to do a repeat of that on a more open vowel and say no, 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 no. And notice I didn't say no, 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 no. I didn't open the vowel. I kept the vowel closed in or narrowed in so that it followed right into where that no, no, no was. No, 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 no. Now, to press into that means to crescendo or get louder on the no without falling out of that condition, without having that sound shift down into your mouth and become pulled up chest. No, 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 no. So that takes practice. But you do that on all those keys in your bridge. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. Go down to where chest would be normally. No, 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 no. And that way you'll learn to stay in that condition. If you stay in that condition, you're learning to press into that condition, and that's going to really establish your mixed voice and head voice. It could be, because it's the same thing going up. Same thing going the other way, which is what's so powerful about mix. Okay, back to the subject at hand. I want to talk about this reinforced falsetto. So as you can tell, there's part of the problem with that phrase, reinforced falsetto, is that there is a disengaged muscle. The thyroid arytenoid muscle in the vocal cords themselves, the folds, has disengaged from the production of the tone, and the vocal cords blow open, and then you're barely getting the edges together. So if we are really being honest to the definition, we have to reinforce this disconnected sound, this disconnected condition. I don't want to reinforce a sound. We have to reinforce this condition of disconnection in order for it to be reinforced falsetto. Because if we engage that muscle again, by definition, we're no longer in falsetto, right? So I can think of maybe two ways to reinforce a falsetto. And again, I don't really feel like it's necessary, because I can do a whole lot in my head voice, as I showed you a minute ago. Here's the high E. Now, I'm a bass, and that's a high F sharp, and that's my low E. Today is kind of scratchy because I didn't get any sleep last night. But anyway, so that F sharp is really probably not where my voice thrives. But I just did it in a connected tone. So that whole time that muscle was engaged all the way up to the F sharp. So for you guys that are tenors that can go, you can blast through that. You can maintain that head voice until the top of your voice. So I don't really know why you really want to do a falsetto, but here's falsetto. I can't come down to it though. So I think there's at least two ways to reinforce the falsetto, and that is more airflow. So if you're going to blow a whistle and you want to blow a whistle louder, you don't bite down on the whistle. What do? To get a louder sound from that whistle, you send more air through. And I think that's what we're talking about here in terms of reinforcing. I think you have to send more air. Oh, sorry. That wasn't falsetto. Now, the other thing you can do is maybe create a little more space in your voice. Now, I had to break back down to the chest to get down to the A. But so I think you can reinforce it with more airflow and maybe a little bit more of a hooty sound. It's kind of a dumb sound. Oh, sorry. So by going a little hootier, a little dumb, a little stupid, so I'm driving my larynx down with a duh, and more airflow. I think I can reinforce that falsetto so that I'm guessing that by the term reinforce means to make it louder or to make it more resonant or augmented falsetto. That's maybe another way to put it. Now, what if I put a little cry in it? Oh, actually, I can't do that. If I put a little cry in it, I connect my chords. Hence the value of the cry once in a while. So if I put a little cry in it, I can actually bring my chords. I can almost reconnect. I can go up in falsetto, put a little bit of cry in it. All right, so here's what happens if I put a little cry. I'll start in falsetto. You can hear the larynx coming up, but guess what else is happening? I'm connecting it. So that wasn't really, I don't think that was reinforced falsetto. Anybody else got any ideas how to reinforce it? I think you have to be a little hooty, and then you have to add some airflow, just more airflow to get a little bit more of a resonant kind of, maybe make a little more space in the throat. And that will kind of help the. Now I think there are people out there. There's a few. What's that guy's name? Like Diamond or something like that, Dimon or something. And I think he's got some kind of augmented, reinforced falsetto going, and maybe he's just doing what I'm showing you, just getting more airflow. He might be able to find kind of a little spot in the back of the throat where he's able to like sit into that with the airflow. Maybe some mouth shape and so forth. I want to try and get the rest of these done. Then I've got a student coming in 3 minutes. So let me just see if I can't find some quick answers here for you guys. Okay, Emmanuel says, he's got to run. Thanks, Emmanuel. Daniel says, is it possible to overwork your voice? Yes. Yep, it is possible to overwork it. Ivan says, Chuck, how do you press? Okay, we did that one. Emmanuel said we learned a lot. And thank you. I have too. It's been a great session today. I usually begin with falsetto and start to make gradual chord closure with steady airflow to make a steady high voice tone. This technique made me reach above the C5 very easily and the bass baritone. Okay. That's Loaya. Yes, that's kind of the reverse of what I do. I just try and stay connected the whole way. But I can see, by doing that cry, I was able to kind of get my chords together. But Evil Genius, just a random question. Have you heard about Billie Eilish? No, but I have. Maybe I should listen to her. Billie Eilish. Sorry, I haven't heard about her. Mark Schultz, I'm thinking with resonators, they mean where the primary and sympathetic vibrations are felt. Okay, gotcha, Mark. So kind of like locations in the face, maybe back of the throat, that kind of thing. Now I can't remember what you asked about. Let me see. Sorry. I spaced it, Mark. I beg your pardon. I'm thinking resonators. Okay. All right. I learned opposite also, chest falsetto, then gradually chord closure to make See, the problem I have with that in the bottom is that chest voice in the bottom is the foundation of the voice. So if it's light and airy down here, what I try and teach is consistency. No matter where you're at, so the chord structure remains consistent, bottom to top, top to bottom. And then we vary the loudness based on amount of airflow through, and maybe a slightly more compressed. But the chord structure in the bottom, we want to have that consistent. Otherwise, in our song, the bottom washes out too. Because when we're in our song and we get down to the bottom, I get a lot of singers that come down in here, and all of a sudden they go almost you can't hear them because they're used to letting go. And so I would prefer, I teach my students consistency, chord structure the same from the bottom to the top and back down again. How do some singers in poverty keep the thickness and brass sound in their voices? They move up in high voice. Patrick, it's 20, 25, 30 years of work. I heard him say one time about that. He did a song. This great big sound. He said, that might sound easy. Take maybe 10 years to do that. It's time and practice and focus. Axl Rose. Okay. Skydar, do you think practice vocal resonance is important? No, I think that the extra... I don't give my students direction on placement. The technique I teach is self-placing. So when the exercises are done correctly and appropriately and as demonstrated, the sound will go where the body will send it. I mean, it's physics, and it will go where if we get rid of tension, we get rid of all the other things going on, you don't have to worry about placement. It'll be there. It'll go there. Do you think practicing vocal, used to do 30 minutes feels so weird starting it? Yeah. So a lot of people, that's one of the problems that, just checking to see if my student's here. One of the problems that Mr. Riggs had was that he kept having teachers say, put it in the mask, bring it forward. Or, he'd say, look, he said, if you tell me to put it one more time, I'm going to tell you where to put it. That's kind of funny, but, how do you tell somebody to put something someplace, And so the exercises that I give cause an effect. They cause certain things to happen in the voice, and so they have the results. They have a results connected to that exercise. You don't have to place something someplace. This video is done. Oh, it's live. My bad. Hey, yeah, it's kind of nice to a lot of people are disappointed when they get on this and they realize it's not live, and you're going the other way. You came on and thought it was a recording. How long is this thing? I'm done. I got to go right now. My student should be here. I don't know why she's not here. Anyway, no problem. Ravindra. Devok says, I think reinforced falsetto is more pharyngeal, but in my opinion, it's still just connected. Yeah, so Devox, I don't think falsetto is connected. I think reinforced falsetto is either, if it's connected, it's not falsetto. If it's reinforced, then it's something is augmenting it, like increased airflow of mouth shape, lower larynx. I find that when I'd have to experiment with it more if I tried to reinforce it with a little bit of like a little edge or something like that. Then I connect my chords, and then by definition, I'm not in falsetto anymore. BG uses forced falsetto, same as the song Sherry Baby. Awesome video, super informative. Thanks so much. Okay, you guys, thanks everybody. They asked you to do a video on the Resonators. Oh, okay, gotcha. Thanks, Mark. I get it. Yeah. It probably would be a non-starter because the exercises tend to put the sound wherever or allow the sound to go wherever it will go naturally. So it'd be interesting to think about that. But All right. Thanks, everybody. I'm Chuck Gilmore. This has been a fun day today with some good information here on the difference between falsetto and head voice, and an attempt to describe reinforced falsetto. I'm sure I'll get some more feedback on that with people who have more experienced reinforcing their falsetto. So I'm Chuck Gilmore with Power to Sing. This is live. This was live, number 162. You can sing higher with beauty, confidence, and power. I'll see you inside the next video. Take care.